Before we begin, close your eyes and visualize. Use your imagination and personal experiences. You don't need monkey brain visuals. You can do better. Now, back to the video. There's a quiet exhaustion that comes from trying to control everything, not just the big stuff like your career, your relationships, or your future, but the little things too, how people see you, how fast you're healing, how aligned you feel by the end of the day. You think you're just being responsible, but what you're really doing without even realizing it is white-knuckling your way through life, one thought, one emotion, one decision at a time, and it's draining you. Because here's the truth, you were never meant to carry all of this. You were never supposed to control it all. That pressure you feel, that tightness in your chest every time things feel uncertain, that's not you being weak, that's you gripping the wheel of something you were only ever meant to ride. And the more you try to steer it, the more lost you feel. Here's the paradox. The more you tighten your grip on life, the more it slips through your fingers. The more you try to force calm, the more anxious you become. You try to plan everything, overanalyze every outcome, rehearse every scenario in your head, like some invisible performance, hoping that if you just do it all perfectly, nothing will go wrong. But that's not peace. That's fear wearing a responsible face. You think you're being prepared, but really you're bracing against uncertainty, against discomfort, against chaos. You've convinced yourself that if you don't stay on top of everything, it will all fall apart. That belief, that's the actual weight. That's what's keeping you tired. That's why you feel like no matter how much effort you put in, nothing fully clicks. You've been chasing stability by doing what actually creates instability, control. And it's not your fault. You were probably taught that control equals safety, that if you can just figure it all out, master your emotions, read people better, heal faster, stay productive, then you'll finally feel okay. But let me ask you something, has it worked? Most people don't even realize that what they're calling discipline or being spiritual is just another version of trying to stay in control. You meditate to stop feeling anxious, you journal so you can catch every thought, you do shadow work so you don't make any more mistakes. But if you look closely, the energy behind it all is fear. It's subtle, but it's still fear. You're not doing these things out of curiosity or connection. You're doing them to fix something, to fix yourself. And when that's the fuel behind your healing, it's no longer healing. It's self-rejection dressed up as growth. Here's the trap most people fall into. They think surrender means giving up, that letting go means losing progress, losing direction, or becoming passive. But that's not what real surrender is. Real surrender is choosing presence over prediction, awareness over control, being willing to meet life as it is, not as you think it should be. Because what if the reason you feel stuck is because you're holding the wheel too tight? What if your mind is so focused on getting it right that you've forgotten what it feels like to actually live? Think about how often you're doing without even noticing. You wake up and immediately check your thoughts like you're scanning for signs of danger. You try to stay ahead of every emotion like a manager hovering over your own nervous system. Even in moments of stillness, your mind quietly whispers, "What should I be doing right now? What needs fixing? What am I missing?" You can't even enjoy a peaceful moment without some part of you preparing for it to end. This isn't your fault. You've been conditioned to believe that peace has to be earned, that it's something waiting at the end of your healing checklist. And once you finally get it together, life will stop throwing you chaos. But peace doesn't come after everything is fixed. Peace begins the moment you stop trying to fix everything. The truth is, control is just your mind's way of saying, "I don't feel safe." It's how you've tried to protect yourself from uncertainty, from disappointment, from being hurt again. But protection can become a prison if it goes on too long. Eventually you're not navigating life, you're just managing fear. And ironically, the more you manage it, the less alive you feel. You lose your joy, your intuition, your spontaneity. You start second-guessing yourself. You look at people who seem at peace and wonder what they know that you don't, when really they just stopped fighting. And then one day you notice something, not because you planned for it, not because you journaled it into existence, but because something inside you finally relaxed. It doesn't announce itself, it doesn't feel like a breakthrough. It's subtle, almost easy to miss. You're in the middle of a moment that would have normally triggered you, but you don't clench. You don't rehearse your response. You don't scramble to regain control. You just let the moment pass and realize nothing broke. You start to feel it, that maybe the danger you've been preparing for all this time was never really there. Maybe all the control, the tension, the mental rehearsals wasn't protecting you. It was blocking you from experiencing life as it is, not as your fear wanted it to be. When you stop trying to manage every second, you begin to feel the moment again. You notice your breath, you hear the quiet, you feel the presence in your own body. Not just as a concept, but as something that's finally allowed to be here. In that space, something opens, your mind softens, your nervous system loosens its grip. You stop asking if you're doing enough, and you just do what feels right. You stop waiting to be ready, and you just begin, not because you're perfect, but because you're finally not trying to be. This is the shift no one talks about, the one that doesn't come with fireworks, the one that feels like an exhale you didn't know you were holding, a quiet moment where you feel, not just think, that you don't have to hold it all anymore. As that grip begins to loosen, something else starts to change. Your relationship with uncertainty. You stop needing to know where everything is going. You stop needing every decision to be the right one. You stop mapping out every conversation in advance, or rehearsing how you'll explain your feelings, or preparing for the moment everything might fall apart. You stop living life 5 steps ahead, because now you're actually in the step you're on. And the craziest part is, it's not that life becomes easier, it's that you stop making it harder than it needs to be. You're no longer stacking fear on top of every quiet moment. You're no longer turning discomfort into a personal failure. You're no longer making stillness feel like a threat. You begin to realize that control never really gave you peace. It just gave you something to do when you were afraid of what might happen if you let go. And in its place, something softer starts to emerge. A slower pace, a clearer mind, a kind of calm that doesn't feel dramatic. It just feels honest, undeniably yours. You laugh a little easier, you speak a little slower, you don't shrink in silence, you settle into it. You don't have to explain yourself every time someone doesn't get it, because you get it, and that's enough. You feel the moments more. Not all of them are pretty, some are awkward, some are raw, but they're real. And for the first time, that's better than perfect. Because when you stop trying to master life, you finally let it meet you.
Not in some grand cosmic download, not in a breakthrough, just in the ordinary silent moments that used to pass you by while you were busy managing them. And maybe that's what's been waiting for you this whole time. Not more control, not more effort, just enough space for you to finally be here. And something else starts to shift quietly underneath it all. The way you see yourself. You spent so long being the one who holds it all together. The calm one, the grounded one, the self-aware one, the one who's always thinking ahead, always doing the work, always showing up with the right words, the right energy, the right perspective. It became who you thought you were. Maybe for a while that version of you helped you survive, helped you feel like you had some kind of grip on a life that never stopped moving. But now, without all that constant self-management, you start meeting parts of yourself you haven't seen in years. The unfiltered parts, the unfinished parts, the parts that don't have a spiritual explanation for everything. At first it feels disorienting, like you're losing yourself, like you're slipping out of the role you built so carefully. But slowly it stops feeling like loss. It starts feeling like home. Because maybe you were never meant to be the one who always has it together. Maybe your value was never in how calm you appeared, or how well you held it in, or how deeply you could explain your sadness without breaking. Maybe peace isn't about keeping it all together. Maybe it's what arrives when you finally admit you don't need to. You don't need to be the version of you that knows how to handle everything. You don't need to keep playing the role of the one who never spirals, never slips, never snaps. You don't need to keep protecting everyone else from your own chaos. Because the truth is, there's nothing wrong with the part of you that still feels confused sometimes. There's nothing wrong with the part of you that doesn't have the answer yet. There's nothing wrong with being human without a script, and when you stop trying to be in control all the time, you give yourself permission to actually become, not the perfect version, not the polished one, but the real one, the version of you that was buried under the performance of control. And that version of you doesn't need fixing, they just needed space. As you begin living from this place, this unfiltered, unguarded version of you, something begins to feel unfamiliar but right. Your life starts to slow down in the best way, not because you're doing less, but because you're finally being more honest, more present, more in tune with your body, with your breath, with the subtle shifts inside of you that you used to bulldoze through in the name of staying in control. You stop chasing those constant little validations, the sense that you're doing it right, that you're healing fast enough, that you're seen as composed. You stop scanning the world for signs that you're enough, and you start feeling it without needing proof. Even your nervous system responds, not with grand gestures, but in small sacred ways. Your jaw stays soft in conversations. Your chest doesn't tighten every time someone misunderstands you. You stop rehearsing boundaries in your head before you say them. You just say them, not because you're trying to prove anything, but because you're finally okay with being real, even if that realness isn't perfectly delivered. You begin to trust pauses in conversation. You don't rush to fill the silence with wisdom or insight. You just let it hang there because silence doesn't scare you anymore. You're no longer trying to impress anyone, not even yourself. Slowly the people around you shift too. Some draw closer because they feel your presence in a way they never could before. You're not layered in tension or unreachable behind your calm. You're just there, accessible, human, real. Others may drift because they were connected to the version of you that overfunctioned, overgave, overexplained. And that's okay too, because now you don't bend out of shape just to stay in someone's reach. Your life doesn't become perfect, but it becomes yours, no longer designed by control, no longer managed by fear, no longer filtered for the comfort of others. You're not obsessing over your next move. You're not asking, is this the right path? Every few steps, you're just walking, feeling, trusting, not because you know what's coming, but because you finally stopped needing to. Maybe this was never about fixing yourself. Maybe it was never about becoming the most healed, most grounded, most enlightened version of who you thought you had to be. Maybe it's always been about this, about the moment you stopped trying so hard to manage life and finally let yourself live it. Because when you've spent years trying to control everything, your emotions, your reactions, your energy, your timing, there comes a point where your grip starts hurting more than whatever it was trying to hold on to. And the moment you stop, really stop, you realize you don't even miss the control. You just miss you, the version of you underneath all the managing, the version of you that laughs without checking how it sounds, that feels something without needing to label it, that exists without constantly calculating whether you're doing it right. This is the part no one talks about. That peace isn't dramatic. It doesn't arrive like a breakthrough. It's quiet. It shows up when you stop performing, when you stop filtering, when you stop bracing against the very life you say you want to feel more of. You don't need to keep being the strong one. You don't need to keep carrying the weight of everyone's expectations, including your own. You're allowed to stop. You're allowed to soften. You're allowed to be here as you are without fixing or controlling any of it. So if this final reflection felt like an exhale, even a small one, if it reached a part of you that doesn't usually get touched by words, then leave a comment with the word soften. No explanation, no backstory, just that one word. Let it be your quiet agreement with yourself that you're ready to stop gripping, even if it's just for a little while. And if you want more of this, then subscribe. Love you all until the next one.